Hey guys, how's it going? It's Chris here, author of the Vengeance series over at vengeancebooks.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at a document again. This is current notes for Devil to the Damned. So I was just looking at one of my flash drives and realized I don't think I ever went over these notes. I went over the book 2 notes, where it was like extra stuff that never either didn't make it into the book or that was conceptual or whatever, and I realized I don't think I did a video on Devil to the Damned notes. Yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and start reading through some of these notes. Now, again, keep in mind, well, first of all, spoilers for just general book series stuff, all book series spoilers, and especially spoilers for Devil to the Damned. Again, everything you read here is to be considered non-canon, and the order of events isn't in order at all. It's just these are just how my notes were copied over from my phone notebook application, emailed to myself, and moved to a Word document for me to keep track of. All right, first we start off with chapter where she interacts with Noah. Start with her like in a dark single-person bathroom, staring at her own reflection. The muffled chatter of students droning just outside the door. Then came a knock. She turns the light on. Exhausted, baggy eyes not visible. She leaves, the person standing outside. She leaves, and the person standing outside just glares at her like she's a total weirdo. Now, I do remember that the original, forgive me for like the timeline of Devil to the Damned. I haven't touched it in a little while. So I'm trying to remember piecing things together. That the beginning of the book, when she's at school, she's like in her classroom. Christine is. She's in her classroom and she's getting a headache, so she leaves to go to the bathroom, but the lights are too bright in there, so she turns off the light and she stares into the dark mirror as her vision starts to, first of all, pulsating from the headache, and then starts to adjust to the darkness to where she can see kind of like her own outline in the reflection of the mirror. So it's like this really foreboding, just like menacing silent atmosphere where she's just looking, trying to find the glint of her own eye in the reflection of the mirror. Somebody knocks on the door, so she just like snaps back into reality and then leaves. It's just supposed to show just how bad her headaches get to where she goes in the bathroom to turn off the light, kind of thing. Now, way randomly, this is much later on with Christine being in the Chrism persona and like the flash forwards or whatever. After killing Syl, a Tuffle, her mouth waters and her stomach turns. Sin notices and says that she feels the hunger and explains why he had her consume people. But those people aren't saints. They were all festering sinners. Do not mourn them. And she questions, what am I? He says, do you want the truth? And she says, yes. Uh, he says, what you are is my child. I made you from myself. Your mind is asunder, burdened by my attempt to establish consciousness. You are the same as them without the host, an artificial soul derived of sacrificial souls. You are a piece of me inserted to quell the chaos. Your consumption of your siblings I know is heinous but necessary. It made you strong, kept you alive. Your mind is still assimilating. Any foreign voices, ideas, or memories you may hear are false. They will soon fade. When she is, and then this is not him talking, when she is forced to kill the Tuffle after waking, Sin makes her eat them. She hesitates and the voice says to do it. Chapter ends with her holding back tears as she sinks her teeth into their neck. So this was the concept of Christine starting to break through the mold of Chrism, and this is all just like a general. These are like not. This is just kind of like along the guidelines of what I wanted him to say as he was sowing the lie of who she was to keep her a subordinate underneath him. So this was his attempt at like, oh no, she's actually developing a consciousness instead of being a mindless monster. I need to have a story. I need to have a purpose for her. I need to have reasons for the questions she's going to have and the mystery she's going to be subject to. So this is him like laying the foundations of a lie to hopefully keep her under his thumb and to keep her, like I said, subordinate to him. But the lie doesn't work because the voices, the consciousness inside of her, the aspects of whatever interdimensionality and other pieces of other beings keep her grounded and basically, if you've read it, admit to his lies, kind of thing. So this is the voice inside speaks, but not in any one voice. These are the voices, or the one singular voice inside Chrism's head. It stole words from a collective history over her life. One word was from a teacher in school, another was from her father, or a conversation overheard. That's supposed to say overheard. Do not listen to him. He speaks in half truths. Sorry, I can't read right now. I haven't done this in a while. Convenience lies sprinkled between fickle realities. Trust us, let us think. We kept you afloat all this time. I tended to believe them. I knew these moments mostly. My memory is obscured, but and uneasy but real. I know this. So this is her again dealing with the conflictions of the voices talking over Sin. As he lies, they're like, "Shh, don't listen. He's full of shit. He also stinks. He probably pooped his pants." That's what the voices are saying. She's like, "Man, he did probably poop his pants. It smells bad in here." More Sin notes. When Sin cages her after waking, we rejoin a week later, and she says that first week was the hardest, constantly assaulted by fragments of her past. Detailed imaginings of heinous things she did, mixed and compressed with innocent banter between her and her old classmates. The floodgates had opened, and insanity tempted her. She keeps seeing a black door in the cage after waking. I spent most of my initial time in a shrouded dark. Sin suffocated the cage with a fog, that's supposed to be a fog, that blocked any noise and light. Again, these were just transferred directly from my phone, so all my fat finger spelling mistakes that I know what I'm saying. I don't need to fix this when I send it over. So dog was supposed to be fog because F and D are next to each other, so you just ignore those. Leaving me to my delusions. I saw many visuals, heard many voices, most of which I couldn't decipher as real or fiction. Only those two guiding lights kept me company and educated me. Different note, different entry. Marin does mention the first rule of the council: they cannot kill without explicit contracts signed by all. That's why he used her to kill all this time. When Marin says Sin is a fragment of God, she says that a piece of him is within her. He bestowed it to save her life. And she does ask Marin if he's ever heard of it later, because she keeps seeing it and hearing a grumbling voice. Then we get their interaction or whatever, and ends with, "This first week was awful, but little did I know that this would continue to be my life for the next 2 years." Next chapter picks up 2 years later, which a very messy, this is mostly me speaking to myself, telling myself in the future that this is where I'm going with it. Like, she's not actually going to say this, but like I want her to be in that state and say things along that line. So this is when Chrism is first waking her consciousness, and she's in the cage, I guess, and they're talking through the bars. Sin says how much he cares for her, and she won't likely remember, but he shared so much of himself while she was under the craze. He loves her. Chapter ends with Chrism asking him if she can leave the cell, go back to Earth. He gives her a hard, skeptical look and says he doesn't believe she is well yet. She says she is. She wants to help him achieve his goals. I don't believe this happened. This is like an early concept of how I wanted to eventually get their quote unquote trust built between each other, to have them talking back and forth between the cage bars. I don't remember how I handled that, because this story was so messy. I had so many different ways of going about things that in my own recollection, I don't remember what the exact canon is. It's not like book one where I've gone through it a million times, and even book two with like the timeline is pretty set in my head. This is very messy and eclectic, so messy in a good way. Sin wants nothing more than her help. His freedom is freedom for the world. He eventually undoes the spell and opens the gate, the door to the cage, but places a hand on her head and sternly tells her she will have freedom, but should she give him any reason to doubt her loyalty, he won't hesitate to imprison her forever if she's lucky. She says, like a robot, "I'm yours fully and truly, Father. Your will is my command." Again, I don't think I did anything like that. It was something different. When she is Chrism and finds the book again, holding it, she says she can feel the putrid energy resonating. Underworld power. No wonder she was willed to the roof not long after discovering it. It took all her negative emotions and made them worse, more convincing. Yeah, when she finds the emerald tome, I think that was the Mokshakarl, I think. I don't remember. Maybe? I don't remember. But, yeah, that tome that just was siphoning her spirit, basically, to make her in a darker place and more vulnerable. And there's a whole thing beyond that, which actually I don't even think I have talked much about in book 2. That's actually a book 3 thing. Ooh. Interesting. Maybe it isn't. Maybe I did mention that in book 2, but in case I didn't mention it in book 2, yeah, that book was siphoning her energy for a reason. Here's some stuff I was just wanting to write. Submerged in a tub of ice water. Further entrench. Perturbed. That's like, oh yeah, I remember that word perturbed. I need to make sure I use that instead of something else. navigate, friction, just different words that whatever. Just remembering synonyms are a better word choice than what I had used when I was thinking about a particular scene. These are insert words, as I now am calling them. This was a plot point that I didn't go anywhere with. I wanted to, but I just never found a good place to really insert it and during like the following drafts. Christine has a little voice recorder that she shows to Michael and she uses randomly throughout the book. She gets the idea to use it later on when she wakes from the nightmare. I have that very short chapter where she actually I don't did I reference the voice recorder in there? I don't think I maybe I did. Maybe that's the one time where I did mention it because I remember wanting it to be more prominent that like her headaches got so bad that she couldn't remember things, so she had a voice recorder that she would use to like keep track of some notes. To if you guys hear a squeaking noise, by the way, it's my chair. I always got to mention that because I shift around a lot and I pluck my arm, the arm of the chair like this, and if you guys hear it, that's just me fidgeting. So yeah, she was always using the voice recorder to keep track of like notes, to remind herself to do stuff, to whatever. And then I started thinking like, wait a minute, this is like early to mid 70s. What were voice recorders like back then? But they were like pretty analog tape recorders and stuff like that. It's not like a digital one we have these days, but there was something. And that was a big challenge too of like I don't know shit about the 70s technology very much. And I'm like looking around like, well, how big was like a home stereo system or like a boom box, and like what, like I'm so uneducated in so many dumb ways. But anyway, so she's gonna have it, and then she wakes up from that nightmare in that very short chapter where she wakes up from a nightmare in the dark of her room, and she's like hearing she was hearing stuff, and this was like she records the dead still of night because she's paranoid, and she plays it back. She hears some weird gurgling hum, like a low resonance, and she doesn't know what that is, but it's actually the tome that is in the pillowcase in her closet. Man, you know what? The more and more I talk about it, the more I realize just how much Devil to the Damned is my favorite book I've written. There's just so many little things. Like I'm not gonna get into it, but like I'm just thinking about like her dealing with that and then burying the book in the yard, coming back years later as Chrism, and like going to the foundation and finding the book buried and then giving it to Ken and stuff. I just fucking ah, I'm getting giddy over my own fucking book. What a loser. Um, all right, so artifacts and relics are different. Relics are dead acolytes in storage and store, I don't know, they stores their energy or whatever. Artifacts are just imbued with energy and serve typically one purpose. Yeah, so this is where I first had the idea during this book that a relic is an actual powerful item that was imbued with the soul of a dead acolyte. When any acolyte dies, they get funneled into an object to give it some sort of property or just combat usage or something like that, some magic use, because that energy can't really be recycled as its current form as an acolyte, because it's a blessed human soul that doesn't really have anywhere to go. There's no natural place for it to exist, so it continues to exist as is, just remolded into something else. And an artifact is an object that was imbued with other energies, like demonic energy or human soul energy, or like for example, in Kim's house, if an object in there, let's say the unicorn statue, like the little glass unicorn, that could have theoretically been imbued, like as its physical thing, not the spiritual thing that we see in book two, but like as its physical glass unicorn figurine could have been imbued with the ditch energy. It wasn't, as far as I know. Maybe I'll make that canon at some point, but right now it's not. But like it could have been imbued with all the ditch energy and was a host to that kind of thing, which could have given it some magical purpose, some exploitative purpose that a demon could use it for. Or yeah, and that's different, the physical one versus like the spiritual, the embodiment of that as a concept that was used in book two. And that's a whole other thing that's currently being explored in the garden, the spiritual nature of the glass unicorn and what it's how deep it goes. Anyway, I'm dropping fucking teasers everywhere. I'm not even meaning to. It's just kind of coming up. Here's another one. Black fingertips when she's holding the book later. I thought that would be really cool. That like she's holding the book and it like tries to corrupt her and just like turns her fingertips black, but it just gets like receded back. It's like she can see the darkness as it's trying to like leech onto her like a parasite, but it's like it like goes over her fingertips and then just like retracts and she's like. Fucking loser. I'm way too strong for that. She scoffs and sees the heavy toll for what it is, and the book that's supposed to be isn't. I wasn't writing ghetto. It wasn't ain't. I was just book isn't just emerald colored. When it's in her hand, it has a gothic, creepy binding, and I think I actually made it like a skinned face stretched over the actual binding. Instead of Chrism waking Ken from his sleep in the bunker by just appearing, she appears at his side on the edge of a barren road while he's walking home from shopping. He has a few. Yeah, that's right. I wanted to have her just like. I wanted to really show the humanity and just like the normalcy of Ken still just trying to live his vagabond life. And just like he's walking on a dirt back road away from like a town towards the woods carrying literally grocery bags. And she just like appears next to him and he fucking shits himself. And she's like, "Hello, Kenneth." And he's like, "What the goddamn fuck, Rism?" She has this feeling on of hands around her wrist, individual fingers. She says at it and is confused. The scratch. I don't know what the hell this says. This is just a random note. It says she has this feeling of hands around her wrist, individual fingers. She says, I think it's supposed to be she stares at it and is confused, then she scratches the skin because she feels it like it's itching. Like there's a like I think it's supposed to be implicative that Michael is like like a spirit of Michael. Like she's imagining him holding her wrist as she's standing or whatever have you. But I wrote that very poorly. The white embodied voice says, "I know it hurts. I know it's hard, but you have to stand. Only you can kill him." Marin asks Chrism why she wants to betray Sin. She says, "It's obvious, isn't it? He saved me when I should have died. He used me and turned me into something inhuman. And it was just me." Basically, this isn't like obviously the whole statement. That's just me putting like a little stamp, like a bookmark of like, I need to remember to like have this conversation kind of thing. At one point, Sin goes to a great cathedral to exchange information. He's been scrawling history of certain fiend archetypes to contribute in exchange for old spells and potential relics to be reclaimed. She links this place to the emerald book she came upon in her old life. She asks if the books. Oh, wait. She asked if the books are like historical documentations. He says the books they hold are torn apart and rebinded as non-sequential segments. One book may contain incomplete stories of fragments of spells and overlapping codexes. Not one single book can complete any one set of information, and no one book can leave the library. All who visit are watched by seers and may only read, never copy. So this was. All right, so I think what this was originally Christine had this old ass like church turned library, like a real gothic looking building, like near like in her town somewhere. And she would go there because it was a library, and she would go there, and it was like, imagine you see like something you see out of Harry Potter, like books in glass cases locked with like chains on the handles and stuff. And she would go there, like it was always like a weird place that like drew the attention of like a dark adorned people. And she would go in there and hang out and like it was treated like a normal library too, but there was like sections and other weird things about it that was just like unsettling. And so she went there, and that's where she originally got the book. That's where she got the emerald tome. And she just like happened to get it, or was like led to get it or something like that. And then she goes back there when she's Chrism, realizing that like, oh, this is a place of like demonic presence. These are the true nature of this place is an overlap with underworld magic and underworld dimensionality. So, and basically she goes there for information and realizes that like a lot of the books she can like interact with there are like each page is a cobbled together mess of different books. So like every single book is ripped apart and rebound as a eclectic collection of completely irrelevant information to everything else in the book. So if like let's say for example one particular spell had 50 components to the spell and would take up 10 pages, those 10 pages would be cut into 5 pieces per page and distributed among random other books so you could never complete a spell with one book. So even if you took something or tried to copy it, every single thing in there was like a codex, and only those who did the proper studying and know how to like decipher these things would be worthy enough to achieve that kind of thing. And also in this was a lot of history when it came to fiend archetypes and their interaction with humanity, whatever. It was just like this grand cathedral library of complex distribution of information that she would get into. But I don't know why I said at one point Sin goes in there because I don't think he was originally supposed to. I think that was supposed to be she or something like that, and then she's been scrawling, and I don't know. I don't remember. Instead of her conjuring the black door, Sin sends her out to eliminate a Tuffle. The Tuffle is defective. She questions what he means, and he explains that it's refusing to fight and it's emitting it's emitting odd energy frequencies. He gives her a little glass box with symbols etched into it and says, "Rip the anima free and deposit it here quickly. I need to research it and find out what went wrong." She asks why her, and he says, "Consider it a test." When she arrives, the Tuffle is weird, mutated, and relaxed. He's trigger warning. He's cut his own wrists and is bleeding into his own mouth, and there are multiple bodies of young children around him. He's mumbling something that sounded like a different language, some chant. They end up fighting, and he's using one of the children, of his barely alive. So he's using a barely alive child up from the ground as a shield to stop Chrism from killing him so easily. When he accidentally moves the child too quickly and their neck snaps, he discards them and makes a rift door to escape. She leaps after him and kills him, and the dimension collapses. She is ejected into Jukai and turns to see the black door. So originally that's how she would find the black door, is kind of like in the same way that Leumik found it, where she killed Gier inside of his own rift portal, which caused the rift dimension to collapse and happened to spit her out into a world where her frequency aligned with the other life force within, which was Melody, which was fucking Minerva. So because Leomik was Tuffle, she had similar energy to the only life force within Jukai, she was thrown into there, and that's how she found it. So Chrism was originally supposed to find it the same way, but I didn't want to be repetitive. At least I don't think that's what I did in the story. I think she was just like inspired by the energies within her, and she was sifting through until she found the black door among the layers of reality. I think it was supposed to like show how she was being intuitive with her powers, that she was she was learning and adapting to it, kind of thing. Yeah, I had this idea for a Tuffle that was like a completely, like, all the Tuffle are insane, right? But this one was like completely breaking down because it was very early in the process of it. So like, it didn't have the compatibility with human psyche like it did later on in the future. It wasn't exploitative of the psyche, it was corruptive of the psyche. So this Tuffle was like slaughtered children, was eating them, was cutting his own wrists and like drinking his own blood. And I had other notes of him just like twitching and mumbling a bunch of weird shit. I had other stuff written down that he was saying, and he was all like contorted and like just completely, just all humanity rejected from him. He's just a feral thing. And yeah, so I had an idea for that, but I couldn't really find a good place to fit it in. And I found other ways to kind of go through and show and gain the trust and have like a test, and also to collect a defective anima. Like, there were different ways I went about it. It's just one of those things that's like would have been on the cutting room floor should it have been a movie, and would have been a deleted scene or something like that. Something I definitely would have wanted to incorporate, but couldn't find a good spot for it. Chrism talks about how Sin makes her collect pieces from all the dead Tuffle before they rapidly decay. Things like their eyes, teeth, snippets of hair, grafts of skin, and fragments from any visible weapons they mutated. She keeps these things in a satchel that she had the book in, which the satchel I believe is the one that she carried. That I believe is the one that shows up in book 2, where they actually put the ditch orb inside the satchel that Tansu safeguards. And I think I did show off some of this when it came to like her pulling out eyes and stuff. But yeah, Sin would always have her, and this is still canon, even if it wasn't explicitly stated in the book. It is canon because I think I do reference it that Sin would have her collect pieces of the Tuffle bodies outside of the anima, to see how, like, for further stuff to research on and use as whatever, just fucking creepy, gross shit that Sin would be like, yeah, this tooth is important for sure. Early on, at some point, she bends down to pick up a rusted roof nail. She holds it and concentrates, intuiting the ability. She then employs it where it shakily lifts off her palm and floats, wavering at her will, albeit not quite perfect. She then shoots it at a wall or a tree, and it bounces off. She then lifts it again and focuses more, raising one hand up flat and recalls the nail at her own hand. It pierces through, and she looks down at the hole, wincing in pain as blood pools and drips before healing over. She tries again and it stops in her hand. She tries again and again until it stops at the skin without piercing. She then manipulates it to swirl around her body before shooting it at the tree and sticking it. She then looks at a rock or something bigger and struggles a bit to manipulate it. So yeah, it's showing how she's controlling that kind of psychokinetic ability, and also controlling her own ability to like withstand incoming damage. If she focuses on a point, she can minimize damage further by actually focusing energy around that. So when she's demonstrating throwing the nail into her own hand with her own psychokinesis, and then as it penetrates through, penetrates less, and then not at all, she's focusing energy in that spot to reduce and to mitigate incoming damage, which can show, like, you know, she can be vulnerable, but she's always actively like reducing incoming damage when she needs to. Give Joey and Kim a little more casual dialogue when Chrism is observing them. Just let them be happy with each other. Just let them being happy with each other marinate. Like before she asked about the animals, they just talk and laugh and tell jokes. Yeah, I really wanted to show just a different view of Kim being whatever she was, like 11 or 12 at this time. Maybe 13, I don't remember. It was between 11 and 13. How she's just like with Joey and she does have a happy place, and then she could find those moments of being content and whatever have you, but to show how it always falls apart because her dad gets home and whatever have you. But I really wanted to show those human moments for her because, you know, in book 1 it paints a picture of it just always being so drab and depressing because it's from Kim's perspective. Like, even if her life wasn't that bad all the time, it's from her perspective. The negative always sticks out above the positive, so she's always recalling the bad shit, and if she does recall anything good, it gets quickly darkened by the cold and harsh reality that she finds herself in. So like book 1, she may come off as like just a whiner sometimes, but it's like, again, it's her point of view. That's how she views her life, and she does get stuck in the dramaticism of like, woe is me, because how could she not? So I wanted to see from Chrism's perspective that like these are the little moments that do stick out that she doesn't always quite think about or recall because it's so smothered in other bruises of her brain, kind of thing, like bruises of her memory, and were wiped away by the ditch energy constantly surrounding her. And Chrism gets to see that, and this is what she kind of latches onto, is like, that's a significant soul that I need to pay attention to, kind of thing. Another voice saying, Christine never existed, you made her up. So there's a voice inside her head that's saying to Chrism, the girl Christine in her head never existed, she's made up. You've always been his offspring, and those visions, memories, histories are nothing more than dreams, concepts, a coping mechanism, just, yeah, that's the part of her. That's like the seed that Sin planted in her when he was telling her the lies of her origin. Whereas the other spirits in her were just like, he's a liar. This other voice is like, no, they're the liars. You made this up. He's right. Whatever have you. All right. We are like halfway. Oh my God. How much more do I have? Um, panes of thick glass at the break of my vision, hands pressed against the glass. So I think this is just her like have like hallucinations of like glass in her peripheral and hands on the other side of the glass pressing against it, like trying to get at her, just like a distortion of reality kind of thing. I can still feel the fire beneath my skin, like biting ants, tirelessly rearranging my flesh and veins. The voice is distilled, steeped in the screams. Should I, this is a question to myself, should I put the chapter bleed between Ken's two chapters, then have a different chapter after Ken's number two chapter? Me just trying to rearrange stuff. Other words, grimy, eclectic, anatomy books. Woe betide any who confront the machinations I set forth. What? What are you saying? Begrieved. I'm going to read that again. Woe betide any who confront the machinations I set forth. I don't know who would be saying that, but I wrote it. This thought burrowing in, growing like a cancer. I can't escape it, no matter what distracts or diverts. It's always there, a gnat in my brain. The mimic voices that guide me in early days of my second life have long since assimilated. The damned, however, have never stopped screaming. Time is in abundance and has been spent digging deeper into memory, all while avoiding sin's prying eyes. Never able to let my guard down, else he discovers a reflection of the dead girl I harbor. Languish. She could sense the abundance of negativity emanating, soaking into the walls and seeping through the windows, swallowing the entire house in a humid containment of compressed, focused disdain. Gunshots so loud and frequent that her vision started to blur and her ears erupted into a burning buzz, slouching further into her seat. Those are all, I believe, separate notes, but they were kind of bundled together. Reclining, obtunded, reclaimer, nebulous propensity, undulating, gestate, deconstructed. Also, some of these were like like fragments of chapter names. Like I wanted to put like reclaimer as a chapter name, or like nebulous gestation or something as a chapter name. Fractured shadows strobing, drawl, unsettling as a silent dimension ward at midnight. I had this realization when I was actually at my job walking around. I had to go up like late at night to bring one of the, I work in a care facility, and one of the floors is like the, not dementia ward, but the people who like sundown and don't have the faculties, don't remember where they are. They think when they get dinner that they're at a restaurant, like those kind of people, those elderly people. And I had to go up there to bring an LNA something, and it was like, I don't know, 2 hours after, like it was around the time where they all like were going to bed, so the halls were really quiet. I was just sitting there in like this weird, unsettling silence of knowing that I'm just surrounded by people who are like no longer people because their minds are just not there. Like these are just like the shells and echoes of what this person used to be, and they're all just in the dark of their rooms trying to sleep, and I'm just standing there like I had this moment of like, this is haunting. This is like, it already felt like I was in like an abandoned asylum. Like, you know, you walk into a place that's empty, but you know is once so full of life, and you just feel like all the bleeding essence of these people that basically no longer exist but are still physical, and you're just like, wow, what the fuck? And I just wanted to get that idea. Unsettling as a silent dementia ward at midnight or whatever. Urgency shot through me like a bolt of lightning, sifting through the wreckage of my desecrated mind. Sifting through the wreckage is absolutely was a reference for Linkin Park. Sifting through the wreckage, I can't concentrate. Searching for the message. Yeah. Sometimes I'll just have like a little lyrical line that I'll throw in there, just like a reference for those who recognize the lyrics. But then I feel like it's plagiarism half the time, so sometimes I've definitely put them in there and then remove them because I was just like, I don't want somebody who like knows it to think I'm copying it. But if I'm like, I like to put in references, but at the same time, I want to be careful because it's like I don't want somebody to think I'm stealing it. So I have to like, but yeah, if I ever, I think I did write sifting through the wreckage at one point or something similar. Sorry, my phone went off, or something similar, and it was supposed to be a reference. Yearning for something once known and forgotten. Covered in open wounds and dipped in a bath of vinegar. Mortified. Blossom. Suffocating dread. Remnants. Random stabs at the core of my brittle bones interrupted any linear thought. Despair. A waking coma. Bones stapled together, eyes on a swivel. Felt like a run-on sentence. The giggling, the curious prodding laughter danced around in the darkness. Swift dashes of shadow in my limited gaze made me dizzy with the circling. Flutters of moving air tickled my skin and ignited the flare, but I didn't react. The imaginative motion was inside, not visible. The whispers behind each varying pitch spoke truth in a broken language. Faces of children surrounded, my own face hidden among the damned, forever out of reach. Needles flooded my face and caused a raspy belt of ire to escape. The children were left sobbing. I don't know what that was about, by the way. Incandescent light. Recalibrate. Viewing the world through a lens of a hopeless psychotic. I like that line. Viewing the world through the lens of a hopeless psychotic. That's a hard line. I don't know if I ever used it. Contorting my perception of reality. It looked like my vision was bleached and finely scrubbed with sandpaper, nothing but blurry, grainy bits of color and obscure details slowly coming to light. I rubbed furiously. My mouth is falling apart. Altruist anarchy. Obliterate. Scapegoat vapid. My fingernails radiated with a hot throbbing ache. Stumble upon a memory that seemed to rhyme. An abrasion of on my consciousness. Confetti mirrors rained down in a twister of malcontent. Approach descriptions of... Oh, yeah, this is me reminding myself. Telling myself to make sure I approach descriptions of characters as though we've never met them, because Christine hasn't met them. So, like, when I'm describing Kim or Joey or Alex or Sin or whatever have you, make sure I don't want to just assume everybody knows everybody, which you would if you're reading this book, but it's also like make sure just remind them of what they look like, especially at the time, because they might look different. Like Kim's hair would be longer or whatever. Curt mantra, seismic, sublime, dizzy, woozy. Sin refers to the tuffle as a vagabond or vagrant. Parabolic, insightful, indignation, horror-stricken, subtle frown. Have Chrism mention what some books are titled or contain. Multiplication of white blood cells, harvesting soul static. So this is like when she's going through some of Sin's stuff. Have her mention what some of the books are called or what's within the books. Yeah, multiplication of white blood cells, which is like I think for part of like the healing factor, harvesting static emittance from souls, whatever. I don't know. Paper cut, insipid, venomous, anemic preservation. Encased in a glass box full to the brim of battery acid and thorns, composting me down to the bare white meat and chewing through layers of whatever remained. The sporadic nature of thoughts and memories surrounded me like a stained glass orb, filled to the brim with multicolored flashing carbonation, out of focus and translucent. No matter where I moved or looked, I was always too close to interpret. I just needed to take a step back and I would see everything, but there was no floor to stand, no back or left, inward or above. Nothing was anything but what it was, and I am blind. I don't know if I ever used that, but that goes hard as fuck too. Sometimes I read this, go, I wrote that? When did I write that? Holy shit. Trying to compile the maniacal thoughts of a long-deceased brain, defibrillated back to life by unearthly magic and subjected to endless nightmares about a life far out of reach. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then I added the... Oh, I guess, yeah, this is where I cut the prologue. So I read the prologue when I did the prologue video for the cut prologue video from Devil to the Damned. I read it from the physical edit copy, and this is the prologue as it was written in the book. So this is the actual clean version of it. So that's just in there, I guess. Anyway, so that right there is what remains of my notes from Devil to the Damned. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and check out my other videos in the my book series archive playlist. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for making it to the end, by the way. If you did, well, you don't know this tradition, but comment boobs down below. If you're from the main channel, you know. If you're not, that sounds weird, but comment boobs so I know you made it to the end. And I will see you all in the next one. And this is where I looked to the recording to see that I actually wasn't recording, but I did. That was 46 minutes, 47 minutes. Good Lord.